The air in the apartment was heavy with the scent of baby powder and fabric softener. Sunlight spilled lazily across the small dining table, catching the edge of a pair of tiny, freshly folded socks. Chinelo hummed softly as she worked, her round belly moving slightly with each breath. Her hands were gentle, folding the baby clothes like they were sacred. This was her favorite part of the day, the quiet moments, the calm before the baby came. Then came the knock, not loud, not frantic, just a soft, deliberate rap against the door. She didn't even have time to say "come in" before it creaked open. Michael stood in the doorway. Something in his face made her straighten. He didn't smile. He didn't look at her belly. His gaze hovered somewhere over her shoulder, as if seeing her made him uncomfortable. "Michael," she said, forcing warmth into her voice. "You're home early." "I was just folding. I want a divorce." She blinked. For a moment, she wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. She stood frozen, one sock in her hand, her mouth slightly open. "What?" she breathed. "I want a divorce." "Chinelo," he said again, flatly. "I've found someone else. I'm leaving." The sock slipped from her fingers and hit the floor soundlessly. "Michael," she whispered, taking a step forward. "You're joking. This can't be real. I'm carrying your child." "I know," he said, with an impatient sigh, "but this isn't working. You're not what I need anymore. Cynthia understands my life, my ambitions. She's educated, well-spoken. She comes from a proper background. She can help me grow. I was with you when you were nothing," Chinelo said, her voice cracking. "I walked you home from work when you couldn't afford taxi fare. I fed you when you were jobless. We dreamed together. Michael, I believed in you." He looked away. "I won't do this. Not now," she said, one hand on her stomach. "Please, ... We made a promise." "You said." Michael's tone turned cold. "That child will be better off without the weight of your background. Cynthia and I can give him or her a better life. You should pack your things. I want you gone by tonight." Her legs gave way beneath her. She sank to the floor, hands grabbing at his trousers. "Please, I'll learn. I'll get better. I'll study, speak better, dress better. Just don't throw me out. Don't do this to us." His jaw tightened. "You have 1 hour." Then he walked away. Night fell with no mercy. The streets of Lagos offered no comfort, only noise and headlights that blurred as Chinelo stumbled, her suitcase dragging behind her like a wounded limb. The city she once loved felt like it had turned against her. Her back ached, her feet throbbed. Her baby shifted uncomfortably, as if sensing that something was terribly wrong. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she couldn't go back. Around midnight, she collapsed near an abandoned building in Ogudu. Concrete dust bit into her skin as she sat down, her hands cupped around her belly. The city hummed around her, laughter in the distance, a car horn, a siren, and silence inside her. "I'm so sorry," she whispered to the baby, "but I won't let this destroy us. I swear to you, we will survive this." By morning, she had barely slept. Her body ached from the hard floor. Her lips were cracked, but her resolve had hardened. She spent the day knocking on doors, restaurants, shops, stalls, asking for any kind of work. Most looked at her belly and closed the door without a word. "Try again after you give birth," one said, brushing her off, pregnant and begging. "I'm not running a charity," said another. By late afternoon, Chinelo could barely stand. Hunger blurred her vision. As she passed a small wooden fruit stall outside Ogudu Market, her knees buckled. "Child," someone shouted, "you look ready to drop." A woman with weathered skin and eyes that had seen too much rushed forward and caught her arm. "When last did you eat?" "I am looking for work," Chinelo stammered. "I can clean, carry, sell, ... anything. Sit down before you fall down," the woman said, pushing a stool toward her. She handed her a banana. "Eat this, we'll talk after." Chinelo devoured it like it was a feast. "I'm Mama Adoni," the woman said, watching her with a careful eye. "You have no one, no family, no home." "Men like that," Mama Adoni muttered, shaking her head. "I've known too many. My husband's people threw me out when I couldn't give them children." Chinelo lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry, don't be. It was long ago. You remind me why I still believe in kindness." She reached behind her and pulled a tray of fruit from a cart. "Take this. Sell near the post office. Bring me my capital back. You keep the rest." I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just don't let that man break you." Over the next weeks, Chinello transformed. She rose before the sun, hauled baskets of fruit across town, called out to passers-by with a clear, proud voice. The bump in her belly grew heavier, her ankles swelled, but she never stopped. She sold until her voice cracked, then rested for an hour and sold again. Some customers ignored her, others gave her coins out of pity. But a few, the ones who saw the fire in her eyes, kept coming back. Every evening, she returned to the old building to sleep on the cold floor. Her earnings clutched to her chest. After 3 weeks, Mama Adoni called her aside. "You're stubborn," she said. Not unkindly. "I have to be. My room is small, but you can stay. Better than sleeping out there with rats and ghosts." Chinello looked up, eyes wide with disbelief. "Why are you helping me?" "Because no one helped me. And because I think you're meant for more than selling oranges." That night, for the first time in weeks, Chinello slept on a mattress, torn and old, but safe, with a roof over her head. And for the first time since Michael had destroyed her life, she dreamed again. Word count checkpoint. Approximately 2,000 words, so far. The next morning, Chinello woke up to the aroma of fried plantain. Mama Adoni was already bustling around, muttering about lazy feet and hungry bellies. "You better eat now," she said. "Soon you'll be eating for 2 or 3. You look like you're carrying a linebacker." Chinello smiled faintly, placing a hand on her belly. "It's a boy. I can feel it. He'll be strong." Mama Adoni said, "You're making him that way, Ma. What if I can't do it?" "Do what?" "Raise him right. Alone." "You won't be alone." They shared breakfast in silence, and then Chinello left for the post office corner, her tray balanced expertly on her head. That afternoon, a man in a dusty suit stopped to buy an orange. As she peeled it, he said, "You speak well. You're educated. Some schooling. I had to stop early. You work hard." "I have to." He paused, then handed her a folded note with a phone number. "My sister runs a canteen in Victoria Island. She might need help." Chinello's heart leaped. "Thank you." But when she arrived the next day, the sister barely looked at her belly before shaking her head. "No vacancies. Sorry." Another door closed, another blow. But Chinello didn't stop. That night, Mama Adoni placed a steaming bowl of soup in front of her. "We take the hits, but we keep swinging. That's how we win." 2 weeks later, on a stormy Tuesday, Chinello's water broke. She screamed for Mama Adoni, who sprang into action, boiling water, tearing sheets, muttering prayers. Hours later, as the rain pounded the tin roof, a new cry filled the air. "He's beautiful," Mama Adoni whispered, placing the slippery, wailing infant in her arms. Chinello wept freely, cradling her son to her chest. "What will you call him?" the old woman asked. "Amica," Chinello gasped. "He who has done great things. You've done great things, my girl." Chinello looked down at the tiny face nestled against her. "This boy," she whispered, "will never know defeat. Not while I'm breathing." The days blurred into one another like brushstrokes on a canvas of sweat, dust, and noise. Lagos didn't slow down for anyone. Not for the pregnant girl with fruit on her head, nor for the old woman who watched over her like a hawk with a soft spot. But inside their tiny rented room tucked behind the market stalls, a different kind of world took shape. One built on routine, on survival, and slowly, on trust. "Drink," Mama Adoni would say every morning, pushing a tin cup of warm, peppery tea into Chinello's hands. "Before you lift that heavy tray. No use fainting on the job." "Yes, Ma," Chinello would reply dutifully, rubbing her belly as Amica rolled inside her like a little storm. The boy kicked often now, as if impatient to enter the world. She sold oranges, bananas, pineapples, sometimes groundnuts when they were in season. Her voice was steady, but not desperate. She smiled without pretending. That's what made her sell. By the 3rd week, a few customers had begun calling her Fruit Lady with an affectionate chuckle. Some gave her extra coins for the baby, others brought empty bottles for her to sit on and rest her feet during long afternoons. Still, the work was brutal. Her lower back ached constantly. Her fingers, once soft and careful, grew calloused and cracked. She bled from her heels more than once, walking miles under the blazing sun. But she never stopped. One evening, as she peeled a mango by the roadside, a young man in a dusty shirt stood watching her for a long time before approaching. "You remind me of my sister," he said. "She worked hard like this. She didn't make it." Chinello looked up. "I'm sorry, don't be," he said. "Just make it." For both of you." Then he bought 5 mangoes and walked away. That night, as she returned to the room, Mama Adoni was sitting on the stoop, plucking beans. "You've grown tougher," the old woman said, without looking up. "I had to," Chinelo replied. "You've changed since that first night. You walk with your head up now. I owe that to you." Mama Adoni snorted. "You owe me nothing. Just raise that child right." There was silence between them for a moment, punctuated only by the rhythmic snap of bean pods. Then Mama said, quietly, "Do you have a name for the baby?" "Yes. I've been thinking ... Amika. It means he who has done great things." The old woman smiled, her face creasing like old paper. "A big name for a little one. He'll grow into it." But fate, as always, had more tests waiting. On the day Lagos felt like a furnace, with no wind and heat shimmering off the pavement, Chinelo collapsed mid-cycle. She came to lying under her fruit tray. A crowd gathered around. "I'm fine," she insisted, pushing herself up, ignoring the dizziness. "I just need water." But Mama Adoni didn't buy it. That night, she watched Chinelo with eagle eyes. "You're overworking. We need the money." I said. "You're overworking." I said, "We need the money." The silence that followed was tense. Then Mama shook her head, exasperated. "You remind me too much of myself. That's the problem. Is that so bad?" "No," she said slowly, "but it's dangerous." 2 nights later, the sky cracked open with thunder. The rain came like a curse, flooding alleyways, turning dirt roads into sludge. And in the middle of that storm, Chinelo's water broke. It started with cramps, then the tightening, then the gush. She cried out, doubling over. Mama Adoni was by her side in seconds. "Lord Almighty, ... It's time." There was no hospital, no doctor, just boiling water, cloth, and a bucket. Chinelo gripped the old woman's hand as waves of pain tore through her. "You've done harder things," Mama told her through gritted teeth. "This is just one more fight." "I'm scared," Chinelo sobbed. "Good, means you know what's coming." It took hours. The storm outside mimicked the one inside her body. Then silence, then the cry, a single shrill wail that cut through the noise and changed everything. "He's here," Mama whispered, holding the slick, wriggling baby in her trembling arms. Chinelo reached out, tears streaming down her face. "Let me see him." The baby was small but fierce. His lungs worked overtime. His fists were already clenched like a fighter. "He's beautiful," Mama said. "He's mine," Chinelo whispered. They named him Amika, just as she had promised. And though there was no crib, no soft blankets, no gold-plated rattle, there was love. Amika was not an easy baby. He screamed when hungry. He screamed when full. He screamed for no reason at all. But at night, when he lay on Chinelo's chest and listened to her heartbeat, he slept like a king. Mama Adoni helped when she could, rocking him, boiling herbs for colic, even wrapping him tightly in old towels to calm him. "The old ways still work," she'd say. Chinelo, meanwhile, returned to work just 6 weeks after giving birth. With Amika strapped to her back, she returned to the streets. The regulars noticed. "Back already?" one woman asked. "Have to eat?" Chinelo said. "Respect." The woman nodded. Little by little, things stabilized. The daily income improved. Amika got stronger. Chinelo's arms too, now muscular from lifting both baskets and baby. But nothing lasted forever. At 11 months old, Amika started running a fever. It started low, nothing alarming. But by the second night, he wouldn't nurse. His little body trembled with chills and his eyes rolled back. The convulsions came like lightning. Mama Adoni didn't waste a second. "We're going to the hospital." The Lagos University Teaching Hospital smelled like bleach and despair. The nurses barely looked at Chinelo as she screamed for help. A doctor came, young, calm. He examined the boy and said one word that sent Chinelo into panic. "Meningitis." "What does that mean?" she cried. "It's dangerous. He needs treatment immediately. Antibiotics, possibly surgery. Cost ... 150,000 naira. I have 75, she choked out. "Then, you have half a chance." She collapsed in the hallway, sobbing. Mama Adoni sat beside her and took her hand. "I have 52, she said. "It's yours." "Ma ... You can't." "I can. That boy is my grandson too." They made the payment by nightfall. Amec survived, but something inside Chinelo shifted permanently. That night, sitting by her sleeping son's bedside, she whispered, "Never again. Never again will I be powerless." As Amika recovered, Chinelo returned to work, more fiercely than ever. She cleaned houses, carried loads in the market, took laundry for neighbors, and still sold fruit. But it wasn't enough. She needed something bigger, steady. Then one day, while selling near a construction site in Victoria Island, she overheard a group of workers complaining about their lunch. Always cold, one said, and no taste. Man, I miss my wife's jollof, another said. Chinelo stood still, her pulse spiked. She stepped forward, nerves buzzing. Excuse me, I can cook. They stared at her, skeptical. I can make hot, tasty meals, every day, affordable. You won't regret it. A foreman raised a brow. You cook for 50 hungry men. Give me 1 day, 1 trial. If they don't like it, you don't pay. The next morning, she borrowed pots from neighbors, ingredients from a nearby vendor, and cooked like her life depended on it, which it did. The smell alone had men lining up. Before noon, they licked their fingers. They asked for seconds. The foreman handed her cash on the spot. You start tomorrow. From that moment, everything changed. Word spread. She got contracts at 2 more sites. She rented a small space to cook. She hired 2 other women. Amika sat in a corner while she stirred pots, his eyes wide with admiration. One afternoon, at just 3 years old, he offered a folded paper to a customer. What's this? The man asked. My mama's menu, Amika said proudly. The clang of spoons against aluminum trays echoed through the open lot like a rhythm of triumph. Chinelo stood behind a folding table, ladling jollof rice and peppered chicken into bowls, her hands moving fast but steady. The smell of sautéed onions and roasted spices filled the dusty air, turning heads even from the passing buses. It was only her 3rd week delivering meals to the construction site, but the workers already called her Auntie Food, and business was booming. Each morning before the sun rose, she tied her headscarf tight, wrapped Amika in a cloth on her back, and cooked like she was feeding royalty. She had learned quickly what made these men happy: bold flavors, hot meals, fair portions, and her warm but firm tone. Don't come late and expect extra meat, she'd scold, handing out meals with a wink. Amika, now 4, sat on a crate beside her with a wide smile and a small notebook. He recorded orders with a crayon, pretending he was the manager. This one didn't pay yesterday, he whispered once, pointing to a man with concrete-stained boots. Chinelo chuckled. We'll get him today. They always did. At night, their small cooking shed turned into a world of warmth and learning. Chinelo would boil beans for the next day while reciting alphabet rhymes to Amika, who repeated them back with a mouthful of bread. M is for Mama? He shouted proudly. No, M is for money, she teased. But Mama is close. He giggled by candlelight. She'd help him with his reading, not because she was trained for it, but because she knew what it was to lack knowledge, and she refused to pass that on. You're going to school, she'd say. Not like me. You're smart. I work hard. You'll do both. By the time Amika turned 5, the business had outgrown the street table. The men from the construction sites began calling her directly. One of them, Mr. Bamidel, a contractor, pulled her aside one day. You ever think of opening a real place, a shop? Chinelo hesitated. It takes money. You're good at what you do. You shouldn't be standing under the sun forever. She went home that night and stared at her savings jar. Inside were crumpled Naira notes, sorted by denomination. It wasn't much, but maybe it was enough for a start. The next morning, she made a decision. She rented a stall in a semi-permanent market in a jegonal 4 walls. No ceiling, cracked floor, and a broken shelf. But to her, it was a palace. They painted the walls yellow. She wrote the name in charcoal above the doorway. The golden pot. It was Mama Adani's idea. Name it something strong, she said. Something that will outlive you. And it did. The name caught on fast. Workers from sites across Lagos started stopping by, even on days off. Mama, we're famous now, Amika whispered one day. Not yet, she smiled. But we're building something. Not everything was easy. They had days when the gas finished mid-lunch hour. They had nights when Amika had fever, and she had to stir soup with one hand while holding him close with the other. Some customers tried to cheat her, others flirted too much, but she stood her ground. When one man said, "You'd make more money smiling pretty," she stared him down and said, "I make money because I work, not because I smile." The other men laughed, but they also respected her more. After that, Mama Adoni though older now, often helped in the mornings, chopping onions, telling stories, scolding lazy helpers. She's not your maid, Mama once told a new girl who refused to clean the sink. She built this with her own back. If you can't respect that, go home. Amika started school shortly after the shop opened. The local primary school didn't charge fees for children from single-income households, and Chinelo made sure he went every day, clean and fed. Every afternoon, she waited by the school gate with a water bottle and a rice cake. "How was it?" she'd asked. "They called me Orange Boy," he mumbled once, embarrassed. "You tell them orange boys run the world. I did better in math than everyone because you count money with me every night. Are we rich yet? Rich in ideas, rich in heart. We'll get there." When Amika turned 7, he entered a reading contest and came home with a small certificate and a bigger smile. "I beat kids from private schools," he said, hugging her waist. "You beat the odds," she whispered, kissing his forehead. That night, she pinned the certificate on the restaurant wall, beside the menu and just above the cash drawer. Customers asked about it often. "That's your boy?" "Yes, he's going far. He already has." 2 years into running the Golden Pot, Chinelo was invited to cater a birthday party for a local politician's mother. She almost said no. It was far, it required transport, and she didn't know anyone there. But Mama Adoni said, "When life throws doors open, don't ask why. Just walk through." So she cooked rice, fish, egusi, plantains, puff enough to feed 50. The guests raved. One woman asked, "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "On the street," Chinelo replied. "For the people who build your houses." The woman smiled. "I want your card." "I don't have a card." "Then write your number on this napkin. You're going to need cards soon." She was right. Within months, her phone rang non-stop. Orders poured in for weddings, office events, anniversaries. She trained to more women, hired a delivery boy, bought a second stove, then a third. Amika, now 10, helped take orders in the evening. "Hello, Golden Pot, how hungry are you?" He'd answer, mimicking her tone. Some customers thought he was a grown man until they saw him. "That's your son?" "Yes." "Sharp boy." He got straight A's that term. That December, they celebrated Christmas in a real home. 2 rooms, tiled floor, running water. Chinelo hung paper stars from the ceiling. Amika insisted on helping with the cooking, burning 1 pot of rice and proudly claiming, "It's rustic." They laughed for 10 minutes straight. On Christmas morning, he gave her a hand-drawn card that said, "To the woman who built a kingdom, from leftovers, I love you, Mama." She cried quietly in the kitchen. The smell of stew thick in the air. But success came with new kinds of struggle. With growth came jealousy. Another food vendor down the road started undercutting her prices, copying her recipes, even spreading rumors. She uses expired oil. She hires dirty girls. Chinelo didn't fight back. She didn't need to. One day, a customer returned after trying the other stall. "Food tastes like cardboard. I missed your magic." Chinelo smiled. "Magic takes effort." Then, an inspector from the food board showed up, citing a random complaint. Her kitchen passed every check. After the man left, Mama Adoni said, "They tried to bring you down, but you're rooted deep." Amika, now 12, entered a scholarship exam for a prestigious secondary school in Surulere. He came home unsure. Everyone else wore blazers. I wore my Sunday shirt. "But did you answer every question?" "Yes." "Then, we wait." 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Full scholarship. Chinelo screamed so loud the entire neighborhood thought something was wrong. Mama Adoni hugged her tight. "He's going to the top." "No," Chinelo whispered, clutching the letter. "He's already there." They celebrated with roasted goat and pineapple drinks. "Can I still work at Golden Pot?" Amika asked. "Only if you finish your homework first. I like it here." "You won't always. One day, you'll want your own world. Can you come with me? Always, even if just in your heart." That night, after closing, Kin stood in the empty restaurant, looking at the walls she painted, the floor she swept, the stove she once prayed over. Her hands were sore, her back throbbed, but her soul was full. They had made it through rain, through hunger, through silence, through fevers and betrayal, and now they stood tall. "I did it," she whispered to no one in particular. Then she smiled. "No, we did." Michael Okafor used to wear Italian shoes. Now he wrapped plastic bags around his feet. He once gave lectures in conference rooms, lined with glass walls and polished floors. Now he mumbled to himself in a broken bench under the third mainland bridge, where rats scurried and no one looked you in the eye. Once he raised toasts. Now he raised trembling hands to strangers and asked, "Please, just a little something." His fall hadn't been sudden. It was a slow, humiliating unraveling, and it began the day Cynthia smiled at another man. Back then, Michael had thought he'd won. He had the tailored suits, the sleek car, the woman every man in his office envied. He had cut Chinello out of his life like a stain, and he never looked back. But Cynthia, she had ambitions far sharper than his. She watched powerful men like a lioness eyeing prey, and when Chief Adabio, an oil magnate with a crooked smile and 10 billion naira in assets, started taking interest in her, she made her move. She needed Michael out of the picture completely, so she did it smart. She started compiling documents, bank statements, email chains, hidden transactions, all pointing to embezzlement. Money Michael had siphoned, subtly, quietly, for vacations, gifts, cars. Then, one Monday morning, the EFCC burst into the bank like a hammer to glass. Michael was handcuffed in front of the same junior employees he used to shout at for being unpresentable. Cynthia vanished, along with everything in their joint account. The evidence was airtight. His trial was brief. The sentence, 8 years. Kirikiri prison was a furnace. Michael learned to fight, learned to stay quiet, learned the price of arrogance. When you were no longer powerful, he thought of Chinello more often than he admitted. He remembered her hands, the way she stood quietly while he ranted, the way she believed in him when he still believed in himself. He thought of the child, the one he'd never met. He imagined him with brown eyes like hers, and a cautious laugh. He didn't know his name. That was the part that haunted him most. When Michael was released at 51, he looked 70, gaunt, hair thinned, teeth missing. He tried finding work, anything, but Lagos has no love for ex-cons. He begged outside the ferry terminal, slept in half-constructed buildings, ate from trash bins. Occasionally, he'd pawn old memories for coins, a gold cufflink, a wristwatch, a photo. One sweltering Thursday afternoon, Michael sat by a concrete wall, head bowed, his stomach growled. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. That's when Amika walked by. Amika had just left a meeting with a logistics firm, his 4th client that month. At 24, he wore tailored shirts and a quiet confidence. He had built his engineering consulting business from scratch and was now hiring interns, but he still took the same road home, past the same street where his mother once sold oranges. He liked remembering. That day, something pulled his attention, a slumped figure, motionless against the wall. Amika slowed down. The man's hands were blistered, his eyes hollow, his voice cracked as he whispered, "Please, anything you can spare." Amika paused. "I'll buy you lunch." The man looked up, startled. "You will?" "Yes," Amika said. "Come with me." They walked in silence. Michael limped. Amika didn't notice the resemblance. Not yet. All he saw was a man the world had forgotten. At the Golden Pot. Lunch hour buzzed. Chinello stood behind the counter, directing her team. She wore her hair in a tight bun and gold earrings Amika had bought her on her birthday. Her voice was steady, kind, commanding. She turned when the door opened, then froze. Her eyes met Michael's. Time collapsed. 20-5 years folded into one. The tray in her hand slipped, crashing to the floor. "Michael," she whispered. Amika turned sharply. "You know him?" Michael's mouth opened, but no words came. "Is this ... Is this my son?" he choked. Amika took a step back. "What?" Chinello closed her eyes. "Yes," she said. "This is your son." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, Amika's voice, low, trembling. "You left us. You threw her out, pregnant, with nothing." "I was young, stupid," Michael stammered. "I didn't understand." "Don't." Amika's voice cut like a blade. "You don't get to say that now." He turned and stormed out, leaving Michael swaying on his feet and Chinello gripping the edge of the counter like it was the only thing holding her up. Michael stayed outside, slumped on the curb. Chinello brought him a plate of rice and a bottle of water. He didn't look up. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For everything." She sat beside him, watching the traffic pass. "I forgave you years ago," she said. He looked at her, shocked. "Not for you," she added. "For me. Anger is heavy. I had too much to carry already. I have nothing left. You had a son. You gave him nothing. And still, ... he became something. Michael wiped his eyes. He hates me. He's hurt. But he's not cruel. That evening, in their quiet living room, Chinelo lit a candle. Mama Adoni sat in her usual chair, peeling boiled groundnuts. Amika paced. He wants forgiveness, he muttered. He wants ... What? A second chance. You don't owe him anything, Mama said, voice soft but firm. I know, but you owe yourself peace, Chinelo said. He ruined your life, and I rebuilt it. He abandoned us, and I raised you. Amika sat down slowly. I don't feel better, hating him, but I don't feel ready to forgive either. You don't have to, Mama Adoni said. You can choose something in between. What's that? Compassion without closeness. 3 days passed. Amika returned to the same spot. Michael was there, hunched, eyes distant. I forgive you, Amika said simply. Michael looked up. Not because you deserve it, but because I won't carry your choices anymore. I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. Just take this. He handed him a small envelope. Inside was a card. Hopebridge Rehabilitation Services for ex-offenders. If you want to change, start there. Then he walked away. It had rained all night. Not a raging storm, but a quiet, steady pour, like the sky letting go of old grief. By morning, Lagos had dried in patches, the streets dusted in gold as if something sacred had passed through. Michael sat at the same spot where Amika had last seen him, the card still folded in his pocket like a key he was afraid to use. He hadn't begged that day, he hadn't chased after his son. He'd only sat with the weight of his failure. But something in Amika's voice had stayed with him, not warmth, not hope, but clarity. Forgiveness without reunion, release without restoration. Michael wasn't owed a second chance, but maybe he could build one anyway. A week later, he walked into Hope Bridge. It wasn't much, just a building with faded paint, a small courtyard, and volunteers who looked more tired than kind. But it was open, and for men like him, that was everything. He spent the first 2 months in silence. He cleaned toilets, swept corridors, attended group therapy where he barely spoke. But slowly, something shifted. He found his voice again, his dignity. He learned to apologize without expectation. And when an NGO offered job training, he signed up without hesitation. Within a year, Michael became a security guard at a small firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. He rented a room near read paperbacks from street vendors, and wrote letters to himself. Letters he never sent. Meanwhile, across Lagos, life moved forward. Chinelo now ran 3 Golden Pot locations, in Ajiguno, Victoria Island, and each one bore the same warm scent, clean aprons, and quiet authority she had built with her bare hands. She no longer cooked every meal, but she visited each restaurant weekly, checking quality, mentoring staff, and paying bonuses personally. She dressed differently now. Clean-cut blouses, beaded jewelry, soft shoes, but her hands still bore the same calluses, and her smile it had only grown. Every Friday she brought food to a children's shelter. Every Sunday she cooked for the elderly on her street. Success hadn't changed her, it had expanded her. Amik, now 29, wore tailored suits not to impress. But because he believed presentation mattered, he ran his own firm, Amika Engineering Solutions, specializing in sustainable infrastructure. Clients trusted him, colleagues respected him, interns followed him like disciples. But when he came home, he changed into sandals and laughed like a boy again. He had married Adeus, a pediatrician with a quick wit and a quiet strength. They had 2 children, Tomi and Zykora, who raced through the tiled floors of the house Chinelo once only dreamed of. Their walls held framed blueprints, handprints in paint, and a large canvas that read, "Built from love, held by grit." On Sunday evenings, the family gathered at the first Golden Pot, now remodeled. The space had new tables, ceiling fans, even a small stage where children sometimes performed. Mama Adoni, now well into her 80s, sat at her usual corner, telling stories no one ever tired of hearing. She still called Chinelo my stubborn girl. She still called Amika the orange boy who became gold. She still made Chinelo laugh the way no one else could. Mama Amika said one evening, holding her hand gently, "You're our foundation." She blinked slowly. "Then you better keep the house upright." Michael never returned to the restaurant. He had passed by once, on the opposite side of the street. He saw children laughing at the window. He heard music drifting through the door. He saw Chinelo standing tall, a plate in one hand, laughter on her lips. He turned and walked away, heart full and broken at once. He wrote Amica a letter that night. It said, "I don't ask to be in your life. I just want you to know I am trying to be someone worth remembering. I hope you and your mother live in joy. Thank you for saving my life, even when I cost you so much." He never mailed it, but the next morning, he stood at the gate of his job 5 minutes early, as he did every day, and watched the city stir awake. Years passed. The restaurants expanded to Abuja. Amica's company was featured in a business journal. Chinelo spoke at a women's conference, standing beside CEOs and entrepreneurs who had never known hunger. And one evening, Tomi, Amica's daughter, asked her father, "Why don't we have a grandpa?" Amica paused. "You do," he said softly, "but he's walking his own path. Will he ever visit?" "Maybe," he replied, "but even if he doesn't, we're not missing anything." And Tomi, who was only 7, said, "Okay, as long as we have grandma and jollof rice, I'm fine." The story did not end with reunion. There was no surprise embrace, no tearful reconnection, but there was peace, that there was growth. Michael continued his quiet life, a rented room, a garden of herbs on his windowsill, letters never sent, prayers never spoken aloud. Sometimes he passed young boys at traffic lights and wondered what kind of father he might have been. Sometimes he saw his reflection in shop windows and almost didn't recognize the man he'd become, smaller, humbler, but somehow more whole. He wasn't forgiven in the way he had once hoped, but he was no longer drowning in shame, and that, he had learned, was enough. One evening, years later, Chinelo stood alone in the original golden pot. The lights were dimmed, the tables wiped clean, the air warm with memory. She walked to the back wall where 3 frames hung, one with her first menu, one with Amica's scholarship letter, one with a photo of Mama Adoni and Amica planting a tree behind the restaurant. She traced her finger across the glass and smiled. Then she stepped outside. The sky was deep purple. The stars scattered like blessings. From the street came laughter, her grandchildren racing toward her, followed by Amica and Ade's arms full of groceries. Mama Tomi squealed, "We're hungry." "You always are." Chinelo laughed. They all spilled into the restaurant. The lights flicked back on. The pots reheated. Golden Pot was alive again. Later that night, as they sat around the table eating, Amica turned to his mother. "You know," he said, "everything I owe to you." She touched his face. "No, my son, you are who you are because you chose to be. I just gave you the start." He paused, looking around at the table. His family, his future, his foundation. "I still think about him sometimes. I know. I don't hate him anymore. That's not weakness. I know." They sat in silence. Then Chinelo said something she had never said before. "You turned pain into power. That's what real men do." Outside, Lagos pulsed with its usual rhythm, noisy, unpredictable, alive. But inside the golden pot, something deeper thrived, a peace earned, a legacy built, and a love that had endured storms, betrayal, and time. Itself, not everything broken could be repaired, but from the pieces, something stronger had been born.